Welcome to our Teacher of the Year celebration program. This year, we're pleased to recognize and celebrate 40 years of recognizing Teachers of the Year here in St. Lucie County. But throughout the history of the world, we have witnessed the greatness of teachers. All of us can recall a certain teacher, a very special someone who inspired us to learn. They were all visionaries who led by example and whose actions transformed lives. Every day, we, along with 100 million parents, entrust our children to teachers. These surrogate parents not only teach reading, writing, and math, but also social skills along with social studies, self-esteem with spelling, and citizenship, as well as science, just to name a few. So what does it mean to be a great teacher? Of course, credentials, knowledge, critical thinking, along with other faculties of intelligence that are so very important. However, a great teacher should be much more than the credentials, experience, and intelligence. So what lies at the heart of great teachers? They're kind, compassionate, empathetic, positive. They're builders, and they inspire us all. This program presents some extraordinary men and women whose timeless wisdom echoes the integrity, character, and passion of educators across our district and across our nation. This program is a tribute to and for teachers and celebrates the special and often heroic role they play in the lives of students. This program is, in our small way, an opportunity to say thank you to those who educate, encourage, empower, and inspire the students of our community. Congratulations to all of these Teachers of the Year for the year 2020, and we celebrate 40 years of recognizing teachers in St. Lucie Public Schools. Please join us in welcoming to our Teacher of the Year Spotlight Show, Mr. Chris Carinante, who's the awesome Teacher of the Year at St. Lucie West Centennial High School. Mr. Carinante, welcome to our show.
Thank you very much for having me.
And he's brought along with him the very proud principal of the best darn school in St. Lucie County, St. Lucie West Centennial High School, awesome principal Andrea Popwell. Pop, welcome.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
It is indeed exciting for us to do the shows that we do that celebrate Teachers of the Year, because it gives us the great chance of introducing just a small portion of our teaching population to our viewers. Now, I know that everybody at St. Lucie West Centennial tuning in to hear what you guys are going to talk about today, but we have some viewers that are very dedicated to our shows who want to know a little bit more about you also, Mr. Carinante.
Sure.
So if you would please introduce yourself to our viewers.
Absolutely. My name is Chris Carinante. I'm teaching my 11th year at Centennial. I went to the University of North Carolina. I teach math, I teach AP Calculus, Pre-Calculus, and I coach the boys basketball team as well.
Cool, cool. Ms. Popwell, introduce yourself, please.
Andrea Popwell. I began education in 2000. I taught at Port St. Lucie High School from 2000 to 2006. And I've been at St. Lucie West Centennial High School since 2006, 8 years as an assistant principal, and I'm in my 6 years principal.
So let's jump right in, Mr. Carinante.
Sure.
Tell me, what's a typical day like in the math classroom of Mr. Chris Carinante?
Yeah, well, we got some great kids in there, I'll tell you that first and foremost. So they make my life very easy. And once that bell rings, I try always just kind of see how where their head's at, what kind of weekend they had, what kind of day they had. We got a lot of math to do, that's for sure. But I can't crunch numbers with them for exactly 90 minutes every single block, you know. So we try and really connect on a personal level first. There'll be some music playing in the background, and then the day will get going. And there will be some high level. If you want to come do some derivatives and integrals with me, you just let me know.
Invite me in.
Come on in. We'll
you sold me when you said music is going to be playing. I'm all in.
The music's playing, but then you got to do the math. That's the thing.
Oh, okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And we get a lot done, but I try and just make sure the kids are light and comfortable. and they do a great job. Again, they're fantastic.
So what's your favorite part of your teaching day?
Easily just connecting with the students. That means a lot to me. Just forging the relationships and just making sure I know them on a human level. Because look, I mean, I'm very good at math and I enjoy math, but that's not what does it for me. You know, like if I didn't get to connect with the students, I don't want to just teach a robot how to do equations. That's not joyful to me. Seeing them succeed, getting to know them as a person, and really watching them grow, that's very enjoyable for me.
Okay, Ms. Potwell, you get to experience the magic every day. So tell me, what's a typical day like from your vantage point in Mr. Carinante's math class? What do you see, hear, feel?
He actually outlined it very well. You will hear music in his classroom. He's always up in front of the classroom teaching. Kids are always engaged. Never had one issue in his classroom in the 14 years I've been at Centennial.
Yeah, I've been there 11.
Yeah, but he really does have good relationships with students. I'm sure we'll get there, but he's also started Eagle Pals at our school, which has been a really great activity group. Yeah, it's come a long way, and it's all because of Coach.
Cool. So, Coach, is it okay?
Absolutely.
Have you always known that you wanted to be a teacher? And if not, when did you decide?
Yeah, no, I didn't. When I was a kid, I did tutor and I coached like youth league and things like that when I played basketball myself. But in my head, you know, it wasn't my career. But I started coaching, and that really spoke to me that it was something that, because really at the end of the day, coaching is teaching, you know. And certainly when I'm blowing a whistle and you know, in shorts and a gym shirt, you know, it's a little different than in my classroom. But at the end of the day, you're still connecting with the person or the player, the student, whatever it is, and you're still getting your message across and everything like that. So once I started coaching, I decided, you know what, this is really what I want to be doing. And luckily, it all fell perfectly for me.
As you reflect back on the decision to become a teacher through your coaching and tutoring experiences, do you think that you pattern yourself after one of your teachers or draw some inspiration from any of them?
It wouldn't be off one person. You know, I just tried to mold my style based. I had a lot of great teachers through the IB program that I was in, and I had some good coaches as well. So I just tried to kind of take parts from each one and really just come up with my own style, what's comfortable for me. And I think I found something that worked.
So as the Teacher of the Year for St. Lucie West Centennial High School, 11 years running, what advice would you now offer to a new teacher?
Yeah, that's a great question. First and foremost, you have to have mastery of your content, and you walk in there with confidence, because kids will know if you're not strong in what you're actually teaching and you don't have a passion for what you're teaching, that's going to be a battle every day you're fighting. Once you have that, then I think what I kind of alluded to before, that connection with the students and everything like that is really the key. Because then you can go in and you can kind of shape your classroom however you want. There's no one way to do this. But if you have a mastery of your content and you have connections with the students, you're going to be able to accomplish great things. So that would be my advice to anybody.
Ms. Potwell, let's ask you to please describe Coach using 3 adjectives and explain to us why you've chosen those 3.
Coach is very dedicated. He's caring and he's compassionate. Last year, or maybe the year before, my last year was all over the place. Coach volunteers to do push-in. We needed extra support for a new teacher in math. He gave up his planning period freely every day to go in to support those students. And as I said, the work that he's done with our ESE population and bridging the gap between our gen ed and our ESA students has been awesome. There's never been anything that's been asked of Chris that he's not openly said absolutely. I mean, he is a tremendous team player and a great asset to St. Lucie West Centennial High School.
Coach, I'm in your math class, and I don't know if everybody thinks that math is naturally engaging.
Certainly not.
For some, it really is.
Yeah.
So how do you purposefully plan to engage your students?
Yeah, well, there's 2 levels to this, because I keep harping on the same thing, but I think connecting with a kid individually, making sure that they know I care about them beyond the math. But now we have to do the math, right? So within the class itself, I mean, I'm going to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. I'm going to call on everybody and things like that. But beyond that, again, really, I can't say it enough, can't stress it enough, that once, in my experience, once a kid knows that like there's a connection here between us, that they're going to be comfortable to ask questions. They're going to be comfortable to to step outside, maybe stay after class if they need to, and go above and beyond. So that my engagement technique is very simple. It's just connecting on a human level, and then making sure that we do everything we can to get that student caught up in what they need to do.
Our students use technology as a part of their daily life, in everything everything that they do.
Mm-hmm.
How do you use technology for instruction in your math class?
Just graphing calculators, I guess. That's really it. I mean, they're not using their phones for anything specifically. I mean, but it's great to use the calculator, and we spend a whole day actually just learning how to use it because there's so many things you can do on there. So once they know that, that can benefit them through my class, onto their college classes, and everything like that.
Ms. Potwell, you mentioned Eagle Pals, I think you called it, and we know that the Teacher of the Year is always actively involved in just everything on campus. Besides Eagle Pals, and you please feel free to explain that, what else would we find Coach involved with that makes Centennial, as you would say, the best darn school in St. Lucie County?
In addition to Eagle Pals, as he's mentioned, he is our head boys basketball coach. And as a previous basketball coach myself, he really does a fantastic job in making those relationships that we've talked about. I think it's really important that we're not only teaching students or athletes how to become better, but teach them how to become better people. And I really like the level of accountability. There is never a time where a teacher will contact Coach Carinante about a student and he doesn't go out of his way to make sure he has a conversation with that student. He participates in Thunder Night. He comes to every football game. He's very visible on campus.
So, Coach,
Yes, sir.
we always start our year off with our students implementing and developing and implementing goals. What are your goals for this year?
For this current school year?
Yes, sir.
You know, I mean, just every day to make sure we're getting where we need to go, making sure kids are learning. I mean, specific goals, like I teach 2 sections of AP Calculus. There's A, B, and BC. So, I mean, that's a very reasonable, or not reasonable, I guess, but just very specific goal, right? These kids want to pass the exam, get their college credit, get 4s and 5s on the test. So we strive for that. In those classes, we strive for that every day. In my other classes, there's no big test at the end, you know, so it's not like a big thing to prepare for, but that's why it's a daily thing, and just to prepare them for their next level. That's simple.
So tell me, what are you most proud of at St. Lucie West Centennial?
I'm very proud. I'm very proud of the connections and their 10 years of graduating classes I've been through so far, and I hope for many more. And their connections I have, I'm able to speak with our former students all the time, hear where they've gone in life now. Again, I've taught some amazing kids. I'm very thankful for that. And being able to relate to them and keep up with them, that's been very special to me.
You're teaching AP Calculus.
Yes, sir.
And with those driven kids, you often have to collaborate and communicate with parents. How would one of those scenarios go? What do you do to collaborate with the home and the school for the benefit of the child?
Yeah, I mean, I'll relate to any parents that need anything from me. I mean, I'll be honest. My students don't need like reinforcement at home. You know, they're self-motivated. They are absolutely, as you said. So you know, I'm happy to support any parent that has any needs. But to be honest, like I said, they don't need extra help from me. But I'm happy to talk to them in any capacity and really just help pushing along.
11 years in.
Yep.
You was not really going to be a teacher until you got hooked. We're glad you got hooked.
Thanks, me too.
But tell me, when did you first fall in love with teaching?
I think that first year. Because if that first year didn't go well, who knows where I'd be right now, you know? But that first year, once I think I did have good teachers, and I always, you know, I was a good student, and I enjoyed the school experience, so that kind of molded me pretty well. But once I was able to see, like, okay, I can really connect with these kids, and I can teach them my style, and really kind of as I built that, you know, developed that style and everything like that, that first year kind of hooked me, like, okay, this is what I want to be doing.
Ms. Potwell, what makes Mr. Carinante the perfect candidate for Teacher of the Year?
He's a great representation of St. Lucie West Centennial High School because of all the things that he does, because he goes above and beyond each and every day. Again, he's very caring. He makes sure he makes a connection with the students inside the classroom as well as outside the classroom. He is an exceptional teacher. This is the first year that I don't know which one it is, Chris, but one of the calculus.
Yeah, BC.
BC, he's taking his planning period to teach this class because he wanted to separate it to make sure both groups of kids would be successful. And he had a very high pass rate last year. So he's always pushing himself to do better, do more, and he's always been very successful.
So with your advanced math courses, with giving up planning period to make sure students are going to be successful, with coaching, with being involved in all the activities on campus, what fuels you, Coach?
That's a great question. I don't think one specific thing fuels me. I just want to keep getting better and make sure every day the kids are being prepared as best they can. So I don't, the thing is you're always on as a teacher. You're always on. So I don't want to have a bad day. I don't believe in like having bad days in my classroom. I'm always going to be prepared. I'm always going to make sure that the kids are getting what they need from me because, again, you're the star of the show in that classroom. That's it. And they're looking to you for what they need and their guidance. So my belief is that I need to be ready every single day. And I just make sure I keep pushing towards that.
Fun fact about you. Share with us a fun fact. And also tell us, if you have time, outside of Centennial, what are your interests?
I'll give you a fun fact. Despite having no vocal ability whatsoever, I'm a huge karaoke fan. So, I have a lot of...
Can we get you to sing? Right, no.
You don't want it, I'll tell you that. You don't want that. But I've had a lot of fun doing that. I just try and enjoy my relationships I have outside of school as well. Great family, great friends. I love playing basketball to this day. Going to the beach, all that kind of stuff. But relationships, that's the key for me.
So when we think about education today, we understand that there are many concerns for educators. What would you think is one important concern that's facing educators today?
I would say that a concerning thing for some educators would be lack of support in some scenarios, And luckily for me, that's not an issue because I feel very supported. But I know some educators out there aren't feeling supported in different ways, whether hopefully they are at their school, maybe not at their school, maybe not from the community, things like that. So that's something to fight through because, again, if an educator, with all the work that teachers put in, if they're not feeling supported and things like that, that could be pretty discouraging. So that would be a worry for me towards others.
Ms. Potwell, is
Yes,
there
sir.
anything that we haven't spoken about that you want to share with our viewers about awesome coach Chris Carinante?
Let me think. I don't know. Chris is, like as we said, Chris is just a great all-around guy. He comes to work every single day. I don't think he's ever taken a day off. Participates in the pep rallies and the games. He's my basketball partner. We've played together for every teacher-faculty basketball game.
Never lost.
He's always the leading
Never lost.
scorer. We've never lost. But now with my shoulder surgeries, I have to step back. But yeah, Chris is our...
You'll be the coach of the team this
I'll
time.
be the coach of the team this year.
So, Coach, let's try to wrap it up.
Sure.
Finish this phrase for me. The world needs...
More empathy. People need to understand where other people are coming from and step outside their worldview sometimes.
So, Coach, you're the Teacher of the Year for St. Lucie West Centennial High School and could possibly be the St. Lucie West for St. Lucie Public Schools. In that role, the superintendent will call upon you to have conversations with different constituents, supporters, families, other educators, possibly lawmakers.
Mm-hmm.
What would your message be?
Going back to what I was saying before, support, I think, there are a lot of great teachers out there, but we all know that teachers leave the field, teachers, get discouraged and things like that. I think teachers need to feel supported. From all levels, and once that happens, I think it's a team collaborative effort, right, from the top down, whether it's state level to the district, to the school, to the parents. And when we're all working together, I think great things can happen at schools. But that would be my message, just to make sure we're all in this together, basically.
Coach Henry B. Adams said these words: "A teacher affects eternity. He can never tell where his influence stops." Thank you for influencing those wonderful lives of those students that you're working with at Centennial. Ms. Potwell, thank you for joining us. And Coach, congratulations on your selection.
Thank you very much.
I'm Jenny Garth, and as a mother of 3, I know kids worry about a lot of things. Getting enough food to eat shouldn't be one of them. But here in America, that is a real worry for 1 in 5 children. This is unacceptable, and something Feeding America is working to solve. Through a nationwide network of food banks, Feeding America serves virtually every community in the United States, including yours. See how you can help your community. Visit feedingamerica.org. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're Feeding America.
We are pleased to welcome at this time to our Teacher of the Year celebration show, the wonderful Miss Kathryn Cologne, who's the dynamic Teacher of the Year at Mariposa Elementary School. Welcome.
Hi, Dr. Perry.
She's brought along with her that dynamic principal from Mariposa, Mr. Craig Logue. Welcome, Mr. Logue.
Thank you, Dr. Perry.
As I tell everyone, we're just really excited to have this opportunity to speak with you and the other colleagues that have been selected as the Teacher of the Year, because it gives us the prime opportunity to share with our viewers some of the dynamic teachers that we have here in St. Lucie Public Schools. And I can guarantee you that everybody at Mariposa tuning in to see what we're going to talk about tonight. But we have some dedicated viewers who would want to know a little more about you. So if you would take this time to introduce yourself to our great viewers.
Okay, well, like you said, my name is Kathryn Cologne. I'm a ESE facilitated support teacher at Mariposa Elementary. I graduated from the State University of New York at Old Westbury with a degree in elementary education, and I'm currently pursuing my master's in special education.
Thank you, thank you. Mr. Logue, would you share with our viewers?
Certainly. I'm Craig Logue. I'm the principal at Mariposa. I've been there the last 15 years at Mariposa. It's hard to believe. My undergraduate degree was in elementary education at East Stroudsburg State University up in Pennsylvania. My master's was at Loyola College in Baltimore. I've been in education for a long time.
Long time, long
Yes.
time.
Okay.
Okay. Welcome. So tell me, what's the typical day in the life of an ESE support person?
That varies from day to day, anywhere from between providing Tier 3 support for children that need it, pushing into a variety of grade levels, and assisting the children to access the curriculum. I currently push into 4th grade, so it's a lot of push on the writing and, of course, reading and math. But we go in and support the children so they can have access to the curriculum.
So when you're pushing in, do you only support with the ELA, with the writing, or other subjects as well?
Math also.
Math also.
Yes. Yeah.
So, Mr. Logue, you are there with Ms. Cologne every day, and you get to see all of this energy and excitement that happens when she's sharing with students. Tell us, what is it that you see, hear, and or feel when you watch her working with those students?
The first thing you'll see when you walk in with Mrs. Cologne is that the children are all huddled around her as she treats them as her, her students, to be able to help progress and do well. The kids are focused, looking at her, watching, listening. Usually there's some laughter. They're happy with what's going on. They know that Mrs. Cologne is going to help them and the things that they need help in. And there's a lot of passion that you'll see coming from Mrs. Cologne towards the children.
Mrs. Cologne, have you always known that you wanted to be a teacher? And if not, when did you decide?
I would say I haven't always known, but yet looking back, I would say I realized it at age 14. I remember babysitting. This little boy across the street, he was turning 4, and he wanted to learn to write his name so badly. So every time I would babysit, we would practice. Well, the day that he got it, he was so excited. And I remember the mom coming back to me saying, "How did you teach him to do that?" It was so frustrating for me to do that. That just made me feel really good. I didn't know it at the time, but now thinking back, I would say that's when I realized.
Cool.
Yeah.
So even at 14, you've already had some teachers. And now with your tenured career, do you think that there was someone that inspired you, or even teachers that you pattern your delivery after?
Absolutely. When I think back to who inspired me, it's my 2nd grade teacher, Mrs. Creek, and my 5th grade teacher, Mrs. Duffy. And the 2 qualities that I remember that they both share are an enthusiasm for teaching and building me up. And they both inspired me to be a better reader, because I struggled in 2nd grade, and when I think about them today, I remember how they made me feel. So.
We all know that when you're an ESC support and you push into classes,
Yes.
you really are not the only teacher there. So you're
Correct.
collaborating and
Yes.
sharing.
Yes.
So how do you work with your other partner teachers to make sure that there's engagement for all students?
I am in constant contact with those teachers, whether it be texting throughout the day. You know, listen, this is what's happening. In fact, my duties post in the morning is the main hub. So those teachers will come out.
Come right
yes,
to you.
Yeah, it's very, I wouldn't say it's sit down formal, it's a constant ongoing conversation because things change the way we're going to do things. If, for example, there are a couple of kids that needed more individual support with writing, so we just arranged that on the fly.
What advice would you offer to a new teacher? Remember, you're the teacher of the year.
I would offer, I would tell them that they need patience and compassion, but I would also tell them that they need to be kind to themselves. This way, they can give the best of themselves to the children. And that every day is a new day, so you get to start over. So don't worry if you mess up.
Mr. Logue, describe Ms. Cologne for us, please, using 3 adjectives, and tell us why we've chosen those 3.
First would be passionate. I mentioned that about how the children are, that's how she is with them. And going along with that has to be caring. Caring is what Kate has always been, whether it be towards other staff members, towards students, towards parents, at IEP meetings. Also, she's a very reflective person. She doesn't always think I see that, but that reflection that she does on a regular basis is what helps make her be such an exceptional teacher in the classroom.
How do you also use technology for instruction?
Okay, well, with my job, it's a little different than the classroom teacher. I use technology definitely to gather data to find out the children's strengths and deficits, and then that guides me in planning how I'm going to question, work in groups, what strategies to give. And in order for me to do that this way, the kids can access the curriculum, therefore they're engaged. If they can't access it, they're not going to be engaged.
We generally start our year with students writing goals, and we then monitor those goals throughout the course of the school year. What are your goals for the year?
For myself?
Yes. As a teacher, instruction.
For my students and all the students to realize their success, to see their success.
And at Mariposa this year, halfway through the school year, what are you most proud of?
The way everybody at Mariposa works together and helps each other out in order so we could better help the children.
Mr. Logue, we know that our teachers that become Teacher of the Year are deeply ingrained into the fabric of what makes our schools work. What would we find Ms. Cologne doing to help Mariposa be the success that it is?
I don't think there's anything that she would not do to be able to help Mariposa be successful, be it attending events, be it advocating for a child at an IEP meeting. One of the things that she mentioned that is very telling about Mrs. Cologne and her duty post in the morning, not only does she greet all the children that are coming in, and it's the one where all the buses come in, so she's got quite a group that's coming in.
Yeah.
And you'll see her with many teachers coming up to her because as an ESE resource facilitated support teacher, the problem that she has is her planning time is not the same time as her grade groups. So she has to come up with creative ways. And what she's done by texting and doing all these other things and having people come to her is how she, in a short period of time, is able to really be up to date on what's going on and what are some additional needs besides what's on the IEP. she is an extraordinary individual who, even at times when she should have been not so happy, she always maintained a positive attitude, and that shines through every single day on that.
Ms. Cologne, you thought you enjoyed teaching when about 14, but is that when you really first fell in love with what you do now?
No. I mean, I realized I was interested in teaching, but I would say I fell in love with it when I was student teaching, actually doing it.
What about that process?
Is the student teaching in New York? The way they did it was there was one semester with K through 3, and then the second semester it was of either 4 through 5. So I did a K and a 5th, and they were both very unique experiences. I got to make a book with the kindergartners, and then 5th grade. This is back a long time ago. They departmentalized, but a little different than the way we do it. But I got to work with 5 different teachers, and they all did 5 subjects, and it was a good experience.
So what advice do you offer parents to help them ensure that their children will be successful?
One thing I always tell the parents is to be a very active participant. If you have a question or you need something clarified, ask, call, and let everybody know that you are going to, I guess, hold them accountable.
Mr. Logue, what makes Mrs. Cologne the perfect candidate for Teacher of the Year?
Teacher of the Year needs to be somebody who has the skill set of a very, very strong teacher. Check, she's got that. Second, she's got to be somebody who really embraces what teaching is all about, trying to move children so that in a year's time they get a year's growth. In her case, it's even more difficult with some of the children that she works with. I think the other thing would be that she is somebody who injects fun into what she does with children. And we always have to remember for that engagement that the kids have to feel that they are cared for, and when they don't, and they mess up, that she's going to be there with them. She's going to push them, and that's what she does with her groups of kids. And it's not just who she works with that's on her caseload. It's all the kids that she comes in contact with, K to 5 at Mariposa.
You have a strenuous workload. Sharing and planning and working with multiple teachers to deliver instruction, the best instruction to students. What actually fuels you?
The fact that everybody has a desire to learn, children and adults, and having that desire inspires me to keep going, whether it be to learn a new skill or to learn how to behave, how to get along with others. Mm-hmm. So the desire.
When will you know that you are a success?
When I'm a success, I think every day. When kids are successful, then I'm successful. But it never ends. It's not just a final, I'm successful.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Logue, is there anything that we haven't spoken about that you want to share with our viewers?
I think as a principal, you get the opportunity to be able to work with a lot of different teachers and staff members, and I've had the good fortune of working with Mrs. Cologne in multiple ways, in multiple classrooms throughout these years. And all during those times, whether she was a self-contained teacher, a 4th grade teacher, a facilitated support teacher, she's always been what I would call a stellar teacher. And that's not an easy thing for somebody to do in so many different ways. So that would be something to me that's important to know about Mrs. Cologne.
Mrs. Cologne, there are many issues and concerns that are plaguing education today. When we think about everything that's around us, everything that's involved in the delivery of instruction for those that are educators, what do you think is the most pressing issue, concern for education today?
Safety of our children. Just making sure that the kids are safe so they could feel secure and confident so they can learn.
Finish this phrase for me.
Okay.
I believe.
I believe that the world's... Gosh, that's a hard question.
Sometimes it is.
Oh my gosh.
When we think about education, when we think about just the world in general, life in general, so it can be all-encompassing. What is it that we believe?
I believe that if children feel loved and secure, they're capable of anything.
Final question for you. You're the 2020 Teacher of the Year at Mariposa.
Yes.
Mr. Logue could call upon you to have a conversation with some visitors on campus. You're now the ambassador for education. They would be expecting to hear from you. What would your message be to them about education?
That as education is the basis of all things to come. For children to be successful, they need education.
We were given this quote by an unknown author, and it says, "It takes a big heart to help shape little minds." Thank you for the work that you're doing over at Mariposa, shaping those beautiful little minds. Mr. Logue, thank you for joining us, and congratulations, Mrs. Cologne, on your selection as the Teacher of the Year there.
Thank you, Dr. Perry.
I want to eat apples and bananas. I need to eat apples and bananas. Why can't I eat apples and bananas?
Support the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks to help provide meals to those in need. Join us at feedingamerica.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're pleased to welcome to our show at this time the wonderful Mr. Ahmad Hussain, who's the dynamic Teacher of the Year over at Northport K School. Mr. Hussain, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Dr. Perry.
He's brought along with him my great friend, Mr. Glenn Ruste, who serves as the awesome principal at Northport. Mr. Ruste, welcome.
Dr. Perry, thank you for your time.
Now, Mr. Hussain, everybody at Northport's tuning in tonight to see what we're going to talk about. But we have some dynamic viewers who are also want to know a little more about who Ahmad Hussain is. So would you please introduce yourself to our great viewers?
Absolutely. My name is Ahmad Hussain. I'm from South Florida. This is my 8th year in education. I've been with St. Lucie School District for 7 years, and I absolutely love it here. My first 3 years I was at Southport Middle School, where I taught science my first year as the ESD support facilitator, and then I taught 6th grade math for the following 2 years. From then I went to Northport and I taught 2 years of 6th grade math. After those 2 years I was promoted to an instructional coach, and this is my 2nd year as an instructional coach.
Cool, we'll come back to that, okay? Let's ask Mr. Ruste to introduce himself to our viewers. Mr. Ruste?
How are you doing? This is my 28th year in St. Lucie County. I spent 10 years over at Garden City Elementary and then 7 years at Port St. Lucie Elementary, and this is my 11th year at Northport. I graduated from FAU with elementary education, and then I did Florida Tech with elementary and instructional technology.
Man, how does time fly by?
It does.
Yeah. Yes.
It does.
So, Mr. Hussain, what is this instructional coach thing all about? So what does your day entail?
Well, my day entails many duties, from being a support facilitator, a CLP facilitator, to conducting walkthroughs, to helping new teachers with co-teaching, helping teachers with differentiated instruction. I'm also a mentor for 3 teachers. I'm a nest administrator. I support all the new teachers at the school. I also do a program called Boys to Men, where I work with the troubled students who are exhibiting negative behaviors in the classrooms. So I work with them social and emotionally. I also do lunch duty, where I clean students' trays. I mean, I don't do it all, but there are many things I do at Northport K-8 School as an instructional coach.
So, Mr. Hussain, tell me from your vantage point, what's the day like for Mr. Hussain, and what's the magic that he brings that makes him the Teacher of the Year?
Well, and as you just heard, I mean, his day is packed, and the thing about Mr. Hussain is he's always willing to put more in there if we need him. He's always willing to help out wherever we need him, but again, he's always student-centered, teacher-centered. As a coach, he's very, very supportive to, both the teachers and the students, and is very much about students and very enthusiastic about their success and making sure to meet their needs as well.
Have you always known, Mr. Hussain, that you wanted to be a teacher? And if not, when did you decide?
I did not always know that. Out of high school, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I became a personal trainer. And as a personal trainer, I realized I wanted to help other people. I would have clients who came up to me, very low self-esteem, were slouching, they seemed unhappy. And after a couple of months of working with them, their posture was straight, they were smiling more, they were much happier. So that told me I wanted to make it my life passion to support people, to help people.
So after making this change in career and the decision, reflecting back on the years of teaching, is there someone that you think inspired you or someone that you patterned yourself as a teacher after?
Absolutely. When I was in high school, my senior year, I took a psychology class. And my teacher was also my basketball coach. His name was Andre McIntyre. And he had such a positive influence on me. Actually, he taught me the importance of respect. He taught me the importance of being humble. And I wanted to have that same impact on the youth. So that's also a big reason why I became an educator.
So where are you from, Mr. Hussain?
I went to high school, Martin County High School.
Yeah, Southport?
Martin County.
Martin County High?
Martin County
High?
Yes.
Coach Mac?
Coach Mac.
Oh, yeah,
yes.
yeah, okay. Cool, cool. We're glad that you're not in Martin County working.
Absolutely.
I'm happy where I am. I'm definitely happy in St. Lucie County.
So when you're coaching teachers, we know that our students were born with technology at their fingertips. So how do you help teachers as a coach, instructional coach, develop plans or use technology for instruction?
Well, last year was my first year as instructional coach, and the other coaches and I created team sites for all teachers, making it easier for them to collaborate. Within these team sites, they now have PowerPoints for every standard they teach, which they can show to students for students to answer on their communicators. So if you walk into a classroom at Northport, you will see a PowerPoint up, and you will see all students engaged. That's just one way we use technology.
Well, in addition to that, you just mentioned the word engagement, and I know you're the NEST administrator, you're also mentoring teachers. Engagement is an important part of instruction.
Absolutely.
So how do you help teachers purposely plan engagement for instructional purposes?
Well, during CLP, we want to make sure that we're asking questions that all students can answer, and we don't want to pinpoint a certain student because let's say they don't understand a question, we don't want them to feel embarrassed. So communicators is heavily used at Northport. Like I said earlier, we have PowerPoints with questions exposed for students. All students answer these questions on the communicator. Once all students are finished, they all hold up their answer for a teacher to scan. That way all students are engaged. And that way a teacher can see, hey, I know who's not getting it right. I don't need to point them out. But if the majority of my students are not getting this question right, hey, I need to reteach this. I need to model it for my students. So that's how we plan for engagement, is by communicator use.
Mr. Hussain, describe Mr. Hussain for me, please, with 3 adjectives, and of course, you have to tell us why.
Of course. Well, and you just heard, and you've touched on it before, engagement. When we would go into his classroom the first 2 years there, the kids were always engaged, and the kids were, whether it was competing against each other in math games, at small centers working with him, up at the board, I mean, he was completely engaging his students, and engagement is definitely something. Passionate. He's got a passion for students. He's got a passion for teachers. He has a passion towards success, and again, and it comes out in everything he does. He really exemplifies, that the student success and wanting the best for students. And really, again, that would probably be is student-centered. And it is about the students for him. And whether as a teacher, when he was there, he wanted his own students, but he owns the students of the teachers that he's now coaching. And so he'll go in there and he'll work with them, understanding that this is the better the teacher instruction is, the better the chance the students have of being successful. And definitely exemplifies that from the time he hits the campus and all the way through everything he does.
In your job, you are often speaking with parents about the child's success. What advice do you naturally offer to parents to help them ensure that their child will continue to be successful?
Just to be supportive, and when it comes to parents, usually teachers contact parents when something's going wrong in the classroom. I encourage teachers to do the opposite. Let's say a student is engaged and they're putting forth the effort more than the previous week or the previous month. If you see that effort being put in, let the parent know, call the parent. Let that parent know, hey, thank you for your continued support. You're doing amazing, and your child is doing amazing toward that, to continue the growth.
So you didn't quite know exactly at the beginning that you wanted to be an educator.
No.
But you've had some experience that also led to some promotions. When can you tell us that you actually fell in love with teaching?
My first year teaching, I worked in Martin County School District as a support facilitator. I did not have my own classroom. So truthfully, that I did not fall in love with teaching that year. My second year was my first year in St. Lucie School District, where I worked as a support facilitator for ESE. Half the day I was in other teachers' classrooms supporting students on my caseload. But the second half I had my own classroom, and I had students come to my classroom, and I saw the impact I was making. And I would say that's when I truly fell in love with teaching and decided to continue the journey and make this my career.
As the instructional coach, dealing with teachers who are dealing with students, and sometimes you're co-teaching, dealing with students, how do you see what you do helping to prepare them to be college and or career ready?
Well, I mentioned earlier how I'm one of the coordinators for a program called Boys to Men. Now, students who are recommended to me don't really have goals of aiming for higher education. In fact, they don't even have goals of graduating high school. But after working with us, like this year we're in the third month, we see students who now are setting goals for higher education, because on a yearly basis we have field trips to IRSC to show students a college campus so they can see what it's like and see that if they put forth the effort, that's the reality for them. They can attain that and they can be successful. But it's just planting the seed in their minds that they can do it if they put forth the effort.
Mr. Hussain, we heard earlier some of the things that he's involved in, but what we know to make the campus work, he's doing some of everything. He said that in his induction. But what else do we see him in being involved in? And explain more a little bit about the Boys to Men program.
Boys to Men started out several years ago with Mr. Alexander Phillips, and he brought it to us. And when we were looking for somebody to take over that, we approached Mr. Hussain, and he's like, well, what does it entail? But the more he learned about it, the more excited he got about it. And again, it's building relationships. It's about relationships. It's about making sure that you're meeting not only the academic needs of the student, but the emotional needs of the student. And that's where, again, Mr. Hussain really excels. We have amazing teachers at Northport, and they work together hand in hand with our coaches. But Mr. Hussain works with the teachers, he works with the students, and again, like I said earlier, whatever it takes for success. And he doesn't consider himself to be successful until the teachers are successful. And ultimately, It comes down, are the students being successful? And again, academically and emotionally. Because again, if you aren't meeting both of those levels for the student, and you aren't, then you aren't meeting the needs of the whole child. And it's very important to us here at Northport to do that. And again, I have amazing faculty and staff that does that with Mr. Hussain. But again, that support that he provides for both the teachers and the students is key to that.
Mr. Hussain, in your last statement, you mentioned how those young men are setting goals. And we know goal setting is very important in education with our students. But we also know that our teachers have goals for the year as well as it pertains to their work with students. What's your goals for this year?
Well, my goals, I currently mentor 3 teachers. I'd love to see those 3 teachers come back to Northport and be more successful than they currently are. Another goal I have is, as an administrator, I'd love for all the mentees in that program to feel like they are growing from it. I also would love to see that all the students I work with, especially those who are not currently proficient, reach proficiency. And if they don't reach proficiency, as long as they're making learning gains, I'll feel like I'm a success.
You're heavily involved in the total operation of the school. What are you most proud of at Northport?
What am I most proud of? You know, prior to this year, I would say a weakness of mine has been public speaking. So Mr. Ruste realized this and knows I have ambitions to grow as a leader. So he made me in charge of NEST this year. And at first it was very challenging to present in front of a group of my own peers, but as time has gone on, I feel much more comfortable presenting. And thanks to Mr. Ruste, I feel like I can attain that goal one day, feel much more confident. And that's what I'm most proud of, is the NEST this year.
So, Mr. Ruste, what makes Mr. Hussain the perfect candidate for Teacher of the Year?
I'm going to go on. You know, he said thanks to me, but it has nothing. You give the opportunities as a leader. And the opportunities really are it's up to the individual to do with that opportunity and make it what it is. And again, Mr. Hussain exemplifies excellence and what is happening as a team at Northport and with the culture at Northport. He is, like you mentioned earlier, a major player in that. He has his hands in so many different things that are going on at Northport, and the positive things that are really happening. And he is a huge, when he didn't want to, you know, again, like he said, take over the NEST, because again, he was, but that is a very important part as a leader, is that when you are going to be leading other teachers, you've got to get used to that. And so again, at the discussion, he said, okay, and he put his heart and soul into it. And he puts his heart and soul into everything he does, whether it's with working with his mentees, the teachers that he works with, the classrooms he goes into, the students. Again, I think that is really exemplifies what the teachers that we are looking for is, you know, when you have a passion and you put your heart and soul into our teachers, our kids, you know, what more could you ask for? And he exemplifies that.
Mr. Hussain, there are many issues that are concerning to educators about the plight of education. As a potential leader with ambition for education, what do you see as a major issue or concern for education?
Well, being that I work predominantly with first-year teachers, I see classroom management being an issue. I would say that's the priority for incoming teachers. We need to work on that. I mean, obviously there's many different aspects to being an educator, but if you don't have classroom management down, it's hard to work on your relationships with the students. It's hard to help students grow. So I would say classroom management is the #1 thing.
Finish this phrase for me. The world needs.
The world needs more passionate educators. It needs more passionate educators to inspire students to become educators, to keep the cycle going of growing and being better than we were before.
You're the Teacher of the Year for Northport K-8 school. Could possibly be the Teacher of the Year for St. Lucie Public Schools, state of Florida. In that role, Mr. Ruste, the superintendent, will often call upon you to have conversations about education with lawmakers, with citizens, with parents. You're the ambassador for education. What would your message be?
My message would be consistency. Because, you know, as teachers, we have bad days too. And we have to put on a front for our students, because for our students, for some of them, we're the best part of their day. And yeah, sometimes we have bad days, but we can't let that show, because students need us. We're that ray of positivity for them. So I would just say remain consistent, and your goals will be achieved.
Scott Hayden left us with these words when he said, "Teachers have three loves: the love of learning, the love of learners, and the love of bringing those two together." Thank you for the work that you're doing, is bringing the love of learning and learners together as you mentor those teachers, as you mentor those young men and boys to men. Mr. Rusty, thank you for joining us and sharing your dynamic Teacher of the Year with us and all of our viewers. Congratulations, Mr.
Thank you,
Hussain,
Dr. Perry.
on your selection.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for
pleasure.
the opportunity.
Thank you. Did you see anyone's broccoli? You moved this? Thanks for helping us.
No problem.
Is this You're welcome.
We'd do anything for kids. Yet 1 in 6 children in the U.S. struggle with hunger. Help end childhood hunger near you. Learn how at feedingamerica.org.
We're pleased to welcome to our Teacher of the Year celebration show the wonderful Miss Ann Turner, who's the dynamic Teacher of the Year at Windmill Point Elementary School. Ms. Turner, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much.
We want to also tell you congratulations on your selection as the Teacher of the Year for Windmill Point.
Yes, it's very humbling. It's very much an honor.
She's also has joining us today the awesome principal at Windmill Point, Ms. Bree Lamb. Welcome, Ms. Lamb.
Thank you, Dr. Perry. You're so kind.
Thank you, ladies. Now, everybody at Windmill Point's tuning in to see what we're going to talk about tonight. They're glued to their TV sets, but I can assure you that we have some dynamic, wonderful, daily viewers that want to know a little more about you as well. So would you please, Ms. Turner, introduce yourself to our viewers?
Sure. My name is Ann Turner. I teach 4th grade math and science at Windmill Point. This is my 3rd year teaching in St. Lucie County. I've taught 4th grade all 3 years that I've been here, and I've been at Windmill all 3 years. I'm from Michigan. I originally taught in Michigan 4th grade for quite a few years. I've also taught 6th and 2nd. This will be my 18th year of teaching. I got my degree, my bachelor's in mathematics from Madonna University in Michigan, and then I got my master's in teaching and learning technology from Madonna University in Michigan. So I'm glad to be here.
Well, aren't you glad you left the cold?
I do. Yes. Every day when you see that sunshine, absolutely.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Lamb, sing for you, please.
I'm actually raised in St. Lucie County and attended St. Lucie Public Schools as a student. I then went on to FAU to get my degree and ACE to get my master's. I've been a teacher at White City Elementary and then an assistant principal at Mariposa before becoming the proud principal for my 2nd year at Windmill Point, the best school in St. Lucie Public Schools. You know, I have to give our
Yes,
rising
ma'am.
stars a shout out.
Yes, ma'am.
So yes, and I'm just very happy to be here with Miss Turner. She is quite an amazing teacher and makes us proud each and every day at Windmill Point.
Now, before we jump back in with Ms. Turner, you told us that you were from St. Lucie County, went to school here. What school did you graduate from?
I actually graduated from John Carroll, but I attended White City Elementary, where it was my first teaching career, and then I went on to Northport Middle School. So I had quite a career, and then in high school, I just went a little bit of a different path and decided to come back to St. Lucie Public Schools.
Well, we're so glad that you did,
home.
and we're so glad Ms. Turner decided to leave the cold weather and join us here in St. Lucie Public Schools. But Ms. Turner, here we go. Tell us, what's a typical day like in the 4th grade math classroom of Miss Ann Turner?
Oh my goodness. Well, there's a lot of learning going on. We come in and we do a launch, a warm-up problem. And then we start with reviewing a little bit, and then usually we'll get out our planners and get organized with our goals for the day and talk about what we're going to do for the day. And then usually we do some kind of a little movement video just to kind of get us up and moving as to what we're going to do for the day. And then we do a whole group lesson. and then we'll break apart into partners, and then move on to centers and working in some small groups. And then we'll come back all together and talk about, okay, what did we learn for the day? What kind of things do we need to work on still? And then we'll do some movement activities and move around and make sure that we're all on the same page. And then usually move on to science from there, because we start with math and then move on to the science instruction.
So have you always known that you wanted to be a teacher?
You know, it's funny because both my parents were teachers. My father was a principal, and my
that's
mom
the last
actually
thing you
became.
wanted?
It was. I started out in accounting. I was like, I'm not going to go in the family business. I'm going to do accounting. But I really got drawn to it, and I think it's the right place. I truly am passionate and truly love teaching.
So both your parents were educators?
They were.
What did they do?
My father was a principal, and my mother was a first grade teacher and then a librarian.
So when you think about your change of mind to become an educator and the long and storied career that you have had, is there someone or multiple people that you think you draw inspiration from and that you pattern your instruction after?
You know, I think so. I had quite a few really good instructors as I was, progressing along, and I had some really good college teachers, instructors that said, you know what, you've got a talent for this. You really need to, think about going into this. And I was always volunteering and doing different things with scouting and volunteering to help tutoring kids. And I think it just was one of those things where it was just like, it's here. You got to grab it and take it. It's yours.
It's like who you are.
Yes.
Well, we're glad that you went into the family business. So, Ms. Lamb, you have the pleasure of seeing the energy and excitement in Mrs. Turner's math class happen every day. What is it that you see, hear, and feel when you visit?
Honestly, when I enter her classroom, it's almost like you're transported into a world within a world, if you will, because she has such a good relationship and builds such a culture within her classroom. It's very unique. She doesn't give herself enough credit or justice for all of the actions that are happening. Her students really just thrive from that academic rigor that she's providing them. She provides them with such many different resources and opportunities for learning, reaching out to the different modalities of learning, and continuing to challenge them to learn beyond sometimes what they even think they're capable of. And I will tell you some of the things that I've seen in her classroom that just give me such great pleasure to see. One of the things that she does, I hope she does it pretty regularly. I've noticed on a few different times, but she does almost like a brain teaser or a problem of the day. And sometimes it's mathematically based, and sometimes I think the students don't even realize that they're using math to solve it. And so they're often trying to figure out the challenge, if you will. And then other things I see in her classroom that I find commendable. Her reactions and her interactions with her students. She truly creates the calm in her classroom for both social emotional atmosphere and through curriculum to just give students everything they need to really help them be successful.
So, Ms. Turner, what advice would you offer to a new teacher?
Funny.
That's funny because I seem to be partnered quite a bit with brand new teachers. So, and it's something that you take on because I love their enthusiasm. So it makes me a better teacher. But I think, like Ms. Lamb said, is just to stay calm. Like, it's going to be okay. We're going to be able to figure this out no matter what situation comes up. Is that, take a deep breath and think about it and, not overreact right away, because I think a lot of times new teachers want everything to be perfect, and it's not going to be that way. That we can work through this and we can talk through it, and just to stay calm and to use what you know, because they've got some really good insight, things that I went to school so long ago that they've got all the new info, and they need to share that and know that they have the latest and the greatest info that we can all share. So.
In addition to that, how do you plan and use engagement as a tool for instruction?
You know what? I think you have to look at each and every student because they all have a different level that they need engagement. And I think that's probably where I've grown the most in my teaching career is knowing that each one of my students needs me in a different way. So this student may need me right with them, you know, every step of the way, giving them help and scaffolding with every single thing. And this student might just need, okay, a little bit of help, and then they're taken off and they can engage themselves and help someone else. So I think it all depends on what kind of a student that you're working with, and plus what the curriculum is, like what kind of academics are we working at that point. So I think there's different ways that you approach it, and all those different ways, one thing will work for this student and it may not work for this one, and you got to keep finding what works for that student. It's very much an individual, because these kids, they need many different things nowadays, and so I think that's part of the engagement, is that I got to make that connection, that relationship with them, so that I can reach them, and then we can learn together. We can be successful.
Ms. Lamb, please describe Ms. Turner for me with 3 adjectives, and of course explain to us why you've chosen those dynamic 3.
I would say she's collaborative. I would say she's a leader, and I would say again she's an amazing relationship builder. So I don't know if that's an adjective or not, but in our book we're using it. I would say she's a leader. You can see that in all that she does. She is on our faculty council, and she is the grade chair for 4th grade. In addition, she is a mentor to a new teacher we have in 4th grade currently. So her leadership skills are amazing. She never seems to get worried or overthinks. And like I said, her collaboration is amazing. She's often seeking out the new teachers, or what's new information or new ideas or new strategies or new tactics, or how to reach to her students. So in those terms, she does that very well too. And again, her relationships, she is the calm in her classroom. She gives her kids so much in terms of creating the strength and the belief in them. And even when you see students who are the most challenging, she tells them, it's okay if you don't understand, not yet. You're gonna get there, we're gonna get there, we're gonna stay calm. We're not gonna get anxious, we're not gonna get excited or angry or discouraged. We're gonna continue, and we've got this. She's that calm person who continually encourages her students to be successful.
Mrs. Turner, knowing that you try to avoid the family business, as you reflect, when did you first fall in love with teaching?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think it may go back, like the seeds maybe back in kindergarten. You know, I remember my teacher, her name was Miss Brown, and I think she was very, like she had her fingers in everything, and she knew what everyone was doing in that classroom. And I think every year I just kind of took a little bit from each one of my teachers, and I think that just kind of carried with me. It just stayed with me. And just, you know, here I am. That's how it works out, I think.
Ms. Lamb, we know the Teacher of the Year is really involved with every aspect of the campus. Share with us some of those things that Ms. Turner may be involved with that helps Windmill Point be the success that it is.
Right. So Ms. Turner's involved in several committees. Some of the ones that I often see her at and participating are PTO. She's an active member in our PTO, in our SAC committee. She's also in our faculty council, and she also is a grade chair as well. She supports often, and Ms. Turner may not be on every committee, but I will tell you that any time that we ever need anything, she's very much a go-to person for fun events, you know, reading events, math events, Publix nights, reading incentives. We can always count on Ms. Turner being there to support her students.
Ms. Turner, because you are one of the go-to-it persons and the people that we count on at Windmill Point, tell us, what fuels you?
Whoa, that's a good question. I don't know, the kids, I guess. I love the kids. I love those kids who are a challenge. Just because when they do come around that corner, that's such a rewarding feeling for me. You know, I've had a couple students that, you know, they come back when they go to 5th grade, and it's just like they were so tough, and they, you know, they come and they give you a hug, and they're like, oh, thank you so much for being hard on me, or thank you for doing this. And I think that part of it is that sometimes you don't see it on the day-to-day, but then
afterwards when they come back, that it just makes that worthwhile, and that then you're like, okay, you know, that did work. That did work for that student. So.
We start the year with many teachers having students set goals for their classrooms. But with that, we know that our teachers have goals for their classes, for what they're doing with students every year as well. What are some of your goals for this year?
Well, last summer I took a class on growth mindset, and it really struck a chord with me. And so for most of the summer I was planning on a bunch of resources and different ways to start the year and to kind of set that as a tone with my students this year. And we started the first week you do a lot of procedures, and so we talked a lot about growth mindset, and the kids just really responded really well. So that's one of my goals this year, is to stay with that, okay, you're not there yet, that we're all growing our brains. And when I hear the kids now, you know, we're halfway through the year, and they'll say, oh, I made a mistake, but I grew my brain. And that I'm like, oh, you know, that's part of my goal for you. And I keep telling them that, you know, that I want you to know that it's okay to make mistakes. I want you to be successful, but to do that, we're going to have to do a lot of work in between, and those mistakes are going to help us to learn and help us to be successful.
As you just mentioned, we're halfway through the school year. What are you most proud of at Windmill Point?
What am I most proud of? A couple things. There's one student in particular that I'm really proud of. Every day he struggles, and he's got a lot of things that come with him to school, and every day we have issues, and every day by the time I see him in the afternoon, he's had a rough day. And I'm just proud of the way that he comes into math class in the afternoon, and he's like, and we've talked about it, we're starting over. This is it. You know, this is a new day, we're starting over for the afternoon, and he's really getting much better at that. I'm proud of him for that.
Ms. Lamb, what makes Mrs. Turner the perfect candidate for Teacher of the Year?
I would say she's the perfect candidate for Teacher of the Year because she encompasses everything that I would expect what a master teacher to have. She has great relationships with her students, great relationships with her colleagues. She's very passionate, committed, and dedicated. I'm sure that every single day Ms. Turner goes home very tired from the instruction that she gives in her classroom, and that commitment and passion, you can see it every day in her classroom.
So let's think forward. You're already the Teacher of the Year for Windmill Point. Could possibly be the Teacher of the Year for St. Lucie Public Schools and the state of Florida. In that role, you are the ambassador for education. You'll be called upon to speak to many of our constituents, to colleagues, to lawmakers about education. As the ambassador, what would your message be?
That's a tall order. I think it would have to be about relationships, that we have to build relationships with students today. That is the utmost important thing that I believe will help them to know that, hey, I'm on your side and we're into this together, and building that strong relationship, then they know that you care about them, and then that student will do anything, will try anything, will do anything in order to learn. And I just think that would be the most important thing, that building those strong relationships is, and they don't teach you that in school. That's on the job training, that building and making sure that that child knows that you care about them would be the most important thing, I believe, going forward, that we need in education.
Finish this phrase for me. The world needs.
The world needs less, less talk about data and less talk about telephones and how we're going to use our smartphones, and more about making that connection with kids and letting them know that we care and building a relationship with them.
Malcolm Forbes said, education's purpose is to replace an empty mind with an open one. Thank you for opening the wonderful minds of those students that you work with every day. Ms. Lamb, thank you for coming and joining us. Congratulations, Ms. Turner, on your selection as a Teacher of the Year at the great Windmill Point Elementary School.
Thank you so much.
I wish I was in school. today. I'll stay after class. I'll clean the chalkboard. I wish I was in school.
School ends, but free lunches for your kids don't have to. Find your local food bank at feedingamerica.org/summer meals for help.
We are so excited to welcome to our celebration show for teachers the wonderful Miss Karissa Diaz, who's the Dynamic Teacher of the Year at Performance-Based Preparatory Academy. Ms. Diaz, welcome.
Thank you.
Joining Mrs. Diaz is Susan Seal, who is the awesome and dynamic principal at Performance-Based this year. Ms. Seal, welcome to the show also.
Thank you so much, Dr. Perry.
Ms. Diaz, congratulations on your selection as Teacher of the Year. We are so excited to talk to you because it gives us the opportunity, just like your colleagues who have been selected for this honor, because we get to share you guys with all of our daily viewers. I can attest that everybody at Performance-Based tuning in to see our conversation tonight. But we have some wonderful viewers that are always supporting us, and we want to share with them who you are as well. So if you don't mind, would you please give us a little introduction to the wonderful Miss Karissa Diaz?
Thank you for that introduction. So I am Karissa, and I am the school counselor at Performance-Based. I'm actually a graduate of St. Lucie Public Schools. I graduated from Port St. Lucie High School in
Go Jags!
Go Jags! That's right. I went to Southport Middle School, and going back from there, I've been here since elementary school. And I graduated from the University of Central Florida. Prior to that, I was at Indian River State College. It was Indian River Community College way back then. And I decided to come back to this community and work in it because I love it.
Well, it's so always wonderful for us to have homegrown talent to come back and share educational experience with the students because they actually lived it. Ms. Seal, can we get you to introduce yourself too?
Certainly, Susan Seal, and I've been with St. Lucie Public Schools for 26 wonderful years. I have been teacher, reading coach, and administrator during that time.
So, Ms. Diaz, what's a typical day in the life of a counselor at Performance-Based Prep?
Well, not one day is the same, so that's the lovely part of it. But for the most part, you come in, you start your day, you introduce yourself and talk to the kids, call them into your office, speak to them one-on-one, talk about their academics, their future, their past, their woes. And it always looks different. Today we had a recruiter on campus from the National Guard to speak to our students. We make sure that we keep them in touch with what's out there after high school, as well as make sure that they're at school every day so that they can learn what they need to learn and get out there and graduate.
Now, Ms. Seal, we ask Ms. Diaz to share, but from your vantage point, what's a day like for a fabulous counselor at Performance-Based?
It is student-filled. From the time she gets on campus, she begins with an SEL group, and as soon as she's done with that, she's working with kids. As you know, our students move at their own pace, so we have students who are completing courses and beginning courses on a daily basis. So first and foremost, she's looking at schedules to make sure that they are appropriately placed, but then additionally meeting with the students, finding out their goals, their interests, and finding ways that we can support them better.
Mrs. Diaz, have you always known that you wanted to be an educator?
No, I don't think that I have. I think that came about. I think counseling is in my blood, and I have a passion for helping. And I didn't know where that path would take me. My family's, an electrician, a hairdresser, a retail manager. Like, that's the people I grew up around. I knew I wanted to go to college, and I had that focus, and I was definitely person-focused. But education came into light when I was at the University of Central Florida, and I decided that I wanted to work in the academic advising office. And from there, it just lit a fire in me. I knew that I had to work with kids. It just happened. I had to do it.
So, because you've had an opportunity to be an educator for some years now, reflecting back, do you think that you pattern yourself after someone or that you draw inspiration? And if so, explain.
Yes, actually, I had a teacher at Windmill Point Elementary many, many years ago, Mrs. Hodges, and I've actually told Dr. Wild this story. And I don't know why, but I never could forget her. I don't know what I can't put a pin in exactly what she was to me, but she believed in me in all kinds of ways, and she was very verbal and shared with and built relationships with all of her students. But I remember specifically how much she cared, and she made you feel like she cared. And I thought, that's how I'm definitely going to make students feel like they're cared for, and that they know that I'm there for them no matter what, and that I know that and understand that they all have special places in this world, and that's how she made students feel. I clearly remember that, 4th grade, long time ago.
Can't be that long ago, Miss Diaz.
Okay, well, not that long.
Maybe yesterday. So, Miss Seal, please describe Miss Diaz for us. Give me 3 adjectives, and of course, we want you to expand on why you chose those 3.
The first one I would choose is committed. She is very committed to the students at our school and to ensuring that we get them to graduate. So she's very focused on the needs that they have, and as we mentioned, that can change daily. I would say the next adjective would be that she's compassionate. She truly has a heart for students, and when we're working with students and when there are some times that we're trying to find the best means, she comes from the role of being a compassionate advocate for the students. And I would say last, you're very solution focused. Whenever we have a problem or that we're working on and trying to come up with the answer, it is not infrequent for her to come in the next morning and say, oh, last night the answer came to me, here's how we need to handle this. So those are 3 adjectives that describe her, and I think shows so well why our school was so proud to call her the Teacher of the Year.
Solution focused, compassionate, and committed. Kind of sounds like a guidance counselor. Yes, but you are.
I
you
think
are.
so.
Oh, okay. So when I think of those 3 descriptors that Ms. Seal gave us, and then I think about you not necessarily choosing teaching initially, education initially.
Right.
When did you first fall in love with education?
I would say it was my very first, so while I was in undergrad, I decided to volunteer with a school counselor up in Orlando at UCF, and she wanted me to run a group. And I thought, oh goodness, I don't know if I'm going to be capable of that. And all these little middle schoolers, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into. And the first time I sat down with the group, may have actually been the second, one little girl specifically opened up to me and asked me to spend a little time with her afterwards. And I thought, this is what I'm here for. She needed me in that moment. And we built a relationship over the next few weeks while I was working there. Actually, it was probably a couple of months. And it changed my view of what I was capable of doing, right? So I knew kind of what a school counselor did. But when I built that relationship, it changed me. It changed me. It made me very passionate about where I was going and what I was going to be doing in education.
As a seasoned educator and the Teacher of the Year, what advice do you offer to new teachers?
To know your why. Daily, you will forget it. You will have moments of faltering, especially those first couple of years. Know your why and remember it and reflect on it. Because if you don't, you could lose your path, right? So if you know your why and you know why you're driven, you're going to always come, and you'll be able to always come back to that. You will always do what's right by the student, and that's what's most important.
In turn, your job mandates that you have conversations with parents about children and their success. What advice do you share with them to help them ensure that their children would be successful?
I think to be open and honest with parents, and to understand that I get that they're the biggest advocate for their student, right? So that they come in and they want to advocate for their student, and to know that we're a team. And I think relaying that message to a parent is so important. We're a team. You aren't in this alone. I'm not in this alone. We need to work together to make sure that your student is successful. So I always come at it from a team approach.
Ms. Seal, to be the Teacher of the Year, Ms. Diaz has got to be ingrained into the fabric of everything that happens at Performance Base. Tell us those activities that she's involved in that helps Performance Base operate.
So, as I mentioned about her being solution focused, one of the things that immediately comes to my mind is when we first started, she and I are both new to the site this year. And as we came together at the beginning of the years, the teachers talked about wanting to have more data on the students. And the data was specific as to where they were in graduation, what the GPA was, which tests they need, their next coursework. Mrs. Diaz became a champion of getting us to use Microsoft Teams, which made it easily able for each of us to see exactly where the students was in time. Not only did she share with the teachers and the entire team how to use that, she has kept up with that from the beginning. So at any moment in time, anyone on our campus can go in and pull up that information and know exactly what a student needs. To me, that's amazing to be able to do that. And I think that it shows that her focus is, again, getting our students graduated. What are all the missing pieces, or not missing pieces, but how all the puzzle pieces fit together and how she can get them to work better together.
To be a great counselor like yourself, you charge students with developing goals so we can chart and measure that success. What are your goals as you work with children?
I think my goals, well, to stay student-centered and to know their story so that way our goal setting is appropriate for who they are, right? So we're all different. The level of success that each of us achieve is on a spectrum. You know, we are going to succeed differently, even, you know, you and I, you and Miss Seal. So how we succeed is different, and what we want to be successful in is different. So when we goal set, knowing that the student should be the driver. So that student, I'm going to guide them. I want to guide them to where they're successful in the way that they want to be successful. But I need them to make sure that they're clear about what their expectations are, and if they aren't clear about what they want, to help them get there. So to kind of guide them through the processes of goal setting. Some students that I get at performance-based, because as you know, our school is 100%, we'll call them at risk or something, a bump in the road happened. They may not have goal set before, and we need to start at the very basics and work through that. So just to be student-centered and to know that they drive, not me, I guide.
As you have had an opportunity to work with the entire administration, faculty, and staff, but most of all, the students at Performance Base, what are you most proud of?
I would say, what am I most proud of? I'm most proud of the attendance. I know that sounds so silly.
Attendance matters. If they're not there, we can't teach them.
I know, but it sounds so silly. I know there's a whole campaign, but I really mean it. So at performance-based, the students have struggled at their home school and they get to us, and a lot of times it's attendance that's setting that is the difference between them being successful and not, right? And I can't help but think that, you know, Miss Seal and the whole team of teachers there, and I guess myself included, have really worked to improve attendance and to get these kids to our school so that we can teach them and guide them and goal set with them. That's what I'm really most proud of.
So, Miss Seal, what makes Mrs. Diaz the perfect candidate for Teacher of the Year?
Again, I go back and think of the 3 adjectives that I shared. And I think that that's part of what is being at the heart of an educator is the fact that you do have the compassion. You have to be committed to the students and to working with different students. Not, as she's talked about, not every one of our students are following the same path. And then again, the solution focused. So I think those 3 adjectives are exactly what makes her the candidate, the best candidate for Teacher of the Year for St. Lucie Public Schools.
Hearing Mrs. Seal say that your students can all be on different paths, and you mentioned it earlier, I think she did also, that you can have a student starting a course today as well and one finishing the course. So it's like a juggling act that happens with you every day, especially serving in the role as counselor, tracking. What fuels you?
Honestly, our future fuels me. We are all dependent upon who's in front of us today, right? As an educator, we can all probably agree to that. If we aren't focused on our future through our children, we're doing everybody a disservice. From the smallest to the largest, right? So it's like from the littlest to the biggest, we've got to make sure that we're future focused and thinking about the future and how the our current students affect that future.
Just for a second, let's change paces.
Okay,
Share with us a fun fact about Miss Diaz, and also tell us what your interests are outside of work at Performance Base.
Okay, that is fun. A fun fact is, and I don't know if this is so fun, I have twin boys that are almost 6 years old, and my mom's a twin, so I always think that's kind of cool. But they keep me pretty darn busy. And a kind of fun fact is I knew nothing about soccer, but I'm married to a man who absolutely loves soccer, and my children have been kicking a soccer ball since they could walk. So I've really learned a whole lot about soccer in the last few years, and it's become a part of literally every day of my life. So I think that's kind
soccer
of cool.
mom?
I am a soccer mom, but I'm a very proud soccer mom.
We understand. I'm thinking back again with your counseling background. We know that there are many issues and concerns that educators have about education. As a counselor and in your role as an educator, what do you think is a pressing issue or concern for education today?
I think a pressing concern is that we need to make sure that everybody understands that the students are the reason, are our reason, right? So if at the end of the day we go home and we can put our heads on the pillow and know that that's what's fueling us, then we're doing what's right by students. But if we lose sight of that, I don't care if you're a politician, an educator, a parent, whatever role in public education you have to understand that at the end of the day it's about our students and their future and our future. And that really has to be on the forefront of our mind as we make decisions about education.
I used to say if there were no students, there would be no need for the teacher.
True.
Yeah. So, Ms. Seal, is there anything that we haven't had a chance to speak about that you want to share about Mrs. Diaz?
I would say the other thing that I think is very important, it is really, we've noticed that so many of our students need support with mental health. And one of the things that she is great about is sensing that and immediately putting supports in place for students. And I think that we can't talk about it enough because there are so many things that our students are dealing with, so many anxieties they have, so many pressures outside of school. So I think that's something that, as we've talked through this interview, we've not talked about that, but it is very important because she sees that. She also is able to share appropriately with the teachers some strategies, interventions that would work for specific students that we know that are struggling. So.
Mrs. Diaz, as the Teacher of the Year for Performance-Based, you could possibly be the Teacher of the Year for the state of Florida. In that role, our superintendent, the state, would call upon you to share with other educators, with lawmakers. You are the ambassador for education. What would your message be?
I love that question. I think my message would be that we as educators are cheerleaders, champions, and agents of change. And that is who we have to be every day. Mrs. Seal and I and a group of us went into a classroom the other day for a young lady who finally passed her reading test. And it was something that it was pressing and she was worried about and she discussed being worried about. We literally walked into that classroom and cheered for her, like full-on cheerleader mode, cheered for her. And I thought, oh my goodness, I'm legitimately cheering for a student. Hello, cheerleader, champion, agent of change. And then I sat in a meeting with a student who had broke my heart and did some things that were really uncalled for. And I had to meet with his mom. And we were in that meeting, and I thought, okay, we don't give up on this kid. We help change. We're an agent of change. And we always champion for our students. So I just think that my overall message would be to anybody who I spoke to, we are cheerleaders, we are champions, and we are agents of change.
Do we have the video of those cheerleaders at the school?
We should.
We really
I bet you we could ask our deputy. Yes.
As we come to a close, finish this phrase for me. The world needs.
Kind people.
Oh, yeah.
That's right.
Sounds like a counselor there. Ms. Diaz, Alexandra Trenfor said, the best teachers are those who show you where to look, but don't tell you what to see. And that is the job of a change agent, a champion for children, a counselor. So thank you for being that for those students at Performance-Based. Ms. Seal, thank you for joining us and sharing Ms. Diaz with us and all of our awesome viewers. And congratulations to you on your selection as the Teacher of the Year at Performance-Based Prep.
Thank you. Thank you.
After 15 years of smoking, Eva Marie quit. There's a new lung cancer screening that could save her life. You stopped smoking. Now start screening. Learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Please help us welcome to our Teacher of the Year celebration show at this time, the dynamic Miss Katie Aherne, who is the Teacher of the Year over at St. Lucie Elementary School. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
She's brought with her our wonderful friend, Dr. Michelle Harrington, who's the principal at St. Lucie Elementary. Doc, welcome.
Thank you.
Ladies, it's a joy for us to be able to do this show because it lets us share with all of our viewers some of the wonderful teachers, the passionate educators that are working here in St. Lucie Public Schools with all of our awesome children. We can assure you that everybody at St. Lucie Elementary tuning in to see the show tonight. But just in case there's some viewers who don't know who the wonderful Miss Katie Aherne is, would you please share a little bit about your background with our viewers?
Absolutely. So I've been teaching for 6 years. My current role is an instructional coach at St. Lucie Elementary with a focus on the intermediate grades. I also support in behavior. I, during the summers, travel nationally for conscious discipline and received my degree at the University of South Florida over in Tampa.
Thank you. Doc, same for you, please.
So I'm the proud principal at St. Lucie Elementary. This is my 3rd year. But what I'm most excited about is I graduated from St. Lucie Public Schools myself. So I've lived in St. Lucie County my entire life, graduated from Lincoln Park Academy.
Go Greyhounds.
Absolutely. Earned my bachelor's degree from FAU and now the proud principal of St. Lucie Elementary for my 3rd year.
So let's jump right in. What's the typical day in the life of an instructional coach in the intermediate grades at St. Lucie Elementary like?
So as an instructional coach, we hold very many different hats, from making sure our students arrive safely and get home safely with our bus duties and car riders. We also are in the classroom on the ground floor, making sure that our teachers and our students are able to take any hurdle away for them so that way they can give our students the best opportunity available.
So when you're working with students and working with teachers, how do you ensure that there's a proper amount of engagement for the learner to be the best that they can?
Absolutely. So prior to our planning sessions that we have throughout the week, the master teachers and the coaches meet with each other in order to kind of map out what our goals and standards are like using the district scope and sequence. And we also use the backward design planning model. And so that grunt work that we do at the forefront then allows us to dive deep in our conversations during planning to give our students experiences that they might not receive at home or anywhere else. So for example, last year we were able to implement grade level wide room transformation. So what that looks like is we created a whole spy lab one time right before FSAU testing, and we incorporated every informational reading standard that is available for 3rd grade that our students will be tested on, and they were challenged with different missions, so to speak, in order to show their proficiency on grade level.
When you're doing that planning and you're helping teachers and you're working with students, we know that it is also important for our students to utilize the tool of technology as they're learning. How do you ensure that that happens, that it's a tool for learning?
Absolutely. So we are fortunate enough to have at least 5 to 7 computers in our classroom, which allows our students to work in collaborative groups. So whether that be independent work through iReady in order to get what they need on their own path, or using programs like Nearpod to create self-paced lessons. So for example, on a Nearpod lesson, it's kind of like the newer version of PowerPoint, but it allows students to self-pace and receive checkpoints and content in order to project them further into their lesson.
So Dr. Harrington, you get to watch the magic happen with Miss Aherne every day. Tell us what it's like when you see her in charge and leading and guiding and working with others.
Well, this is my 2nd year I've had the pleasure of working with Katie, and she's one of those that once she's on the team, you realize that you found a gem. Truly, she just had a baby, so she's out on maternity leave, and we often say we're not really sure what we're going to do with Katie, without Katie. She is the backbone to everything 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade does with reading. And so in helping making sure that the lessons not only meet the standards, but they're fun and that kids are learning while they're enjoying the learning is really only happening because we have Katie on our team.
Ms. Aherne, have you always known that you wanted to be a teacher?
Yeah, absolutely. So my mom actually, as Dr. Harrington mentioned, I just had a baby, so my mom's kind of reminiscing and going through my old baby books. And my kindergarten, what do you want to be when you grow up, was a chef/teacher, which, as Dr. Harrington knows, I bring lots of goodies. So I've been able to achieve both. So yeah, from day one, I've known.
From day one, you've known. So when you reflect and you think, do you think that you draw inspiration from someone or that you pattern your method of delivery after, and if so, share?
Yes, I do. So I was fortunate enough to go to a small school, kindergarten through 12th grade, much like our K-8 schools, but it went all the way through high school. So as an elective in high school from 9th through 12th, I was a teacher's aide and in the local preschool that was on campus. And so I draw a lot of my inspiration from Barbara Robertson, just her love and compassion for our students. I strive to give each day. And then as far as engagement and academic and breaking down any barriers that our students or teachers might receive, I draw my inspiration from Ron Clark, which I had the privilege of going to his academy a couple summers ago.
In Atlanta?
Yes.
Okay, great, great. So share with me this. As an instructional coach, you share with many. What advice do you offer to new teachers?
The first piece of advice that I offer is to have fun, because if you're having fun and you're excited to come to school each day, then your kids will, and that will reflect in their behavior, them following transitions and procedures, and them gaining the knowledge that we need them to learn.
So, Dr. Harrington, give us 3 adjectives that will be descriptors for Ms. Aherne, and share with us why you've chosen those 3.
So the first adjective I would use to describe Katie is she's a servant. We do a lot of work at our school on servant leadership, and we believe that the only way we lead others is by serving them. And she is the epitome of a servant leader, in that she is willing to do anything anybody needs to get the job done. The other word I would use, she actually just used it a moment ago, is compassionate. She has really helped transform our school in terms of student culture. And so when you take a look at St. Lucie Elementary over time, we've had drastic transformation in student discipline and student behavior, and that is largely attributed to the work of Katie in helping people understand. Her compassion leads to helping our teachers understand how them being compassionate towards our students affects the students' experience at school. So I would say she's a servant, she's compassionate, and she is passionate about everything that she does. As I mentioned, she's been at St. Lucie Elementary for 2 years. What most people don't know about Katie is that when she applied, she didn't apply to work at St. Lucie Elementary. She knew she was moving from the West Coast to the East Coast, so she was moving from Tampa to Fort Pierce, and she researched which were the lowest performing schools in St. Lucie County, and she found 2, and she emailed the principals of those 2 schools and said, there's no other place in the world I want to work but a school in turnaround. And that's how we got her. So that shows her passion towards students that need the best teachers, and that's exactly what she is.
We're so glad that you came over to St. Lucie Public Schools. We talked about the advice that you would offer to new teachers, but in your role, you often have to also have conversations with parents. So what advice would you share with parents to help them ensure that their children will be successful?
So many times when I first meet parents, especially in turnaround schools, they might have had a previous experience that wasn't so positive, or with their student, they're maybe used to getting that phone call just out of the teacher's frustration and needing help with behavior. And so I always tell them that if they believe and if their students believe, then they will be successful. And it sounds a little frou-frou or kind of silly, but I truly believe that the reason why I've been able to achieve 90% of learning gains with my bottom quartile students, or students who were previously retained in 3rd grade now achieving a proficient score on the FSA just 1 year later, is because I believe in them, and they know that with every heart of my being. In fact, sometimes I tell a small little white lie to them and say, I've never had a student who has never been retained before. They've always passed. And so you kind of see their chest puff up like, oh, we have the best of the best, so that means I'm going to be the best of the best, and then they ultimately reach that goal.
In your job as a coach, and it's okay to inspire students by doing that, but in your role as a coach, what impact do you see yourself having on students' ability to be college and or career ready?
Well, I think through our collaborative planning, that allows and ensures that no matter what classroom that our students are in on our campus, they are receiving the best lesson and the best strategies and the best teacher and best practices each and every day. So through our collaborative planning, allowing them and giving them, not just filling that achievement gap and the opportunity gap, we're allowing them to have grade level work, which then ultimately trajects them to that college or career readiness.
So, Dr. Harrington, what activities would we find Ms. Aherne involved in that just cements the fabric and helps the school operate daily?
So we've talked a lot about her support for planning. I'm going to talk something fun. So with St. Lucie Elementary, we have a really good staff culture, which impacts us to have a really great student culture. And so I mentioned she's also a leader. She mentioned she was a baker. And so for Christmas, we spent about 12 hours up until midnight one night baking cakes for our teachers. And it was Katie's idea. Might admit that there was a time as we approached midnight that I doubted whether or not it was a great idea. But it shows her passion for people, and she knew she wanted to give a homemade gift to the teachers because she recognizes that happy teachers lead to happy students. And that's just one of many ways Katie has a positive impact at our school.
Since Dr. Harrington was sharing some fun, we're going to switch gears for just a minute and ask you to share with us a fun fact about Miss Katie Aherne, and then also, if you don't mind, share with us your interests outside of St. Lucie Elementary.
Okay, so a fun fact about me is that I own more cowboy boots than there are days of the week. So I am well known as wearing cowboy boots to school, and I am able to wear a different one each day of the week. And then something that I do outside of school is I unfortunately love to Amazon shop. So almost every single day, that might be my husband's words. It's a small exaggeration, but we probably have the Amazon person show up at least 3 times a week.
Cool. So we're going to reflect on your time as an educator and ask you this major question. When did you first fall in love with teaching?
So I first fell in love with teaching my first year as an intern through the University of South Florida. I was placed in another turnaround school, similar minority rates in academic success as St. Lucie Elementary, but a different demographic. A lot of our students were Hispanic and migrant workers, and so they moved depending on the crops and the seasons. And seeing those students who helped their parents work in the field at 6 in the morning, 4 in the morning, and then got to school by 7:15, made it through a full day of school, and then went back home to help pick more in order to provide for their family, is where I fell in love with teaching at schools that are similar to St. Lucie Elementary with the turnaround aspect.
So Dr. Harrington, what makes Ms. Aherne the perfect candidate for Teacher of the Year?
She really she's the total package. And when I think about Teacher of the Year as being somebody who not only excels in the classroom, but somebody that can help lead a school to excelling as a whole. When Katie joined St. Lucie Elementary, as she mentioned, we were in turnaround status, And we had the highest gains of every single school in all of St. Lucie County last year, and I attribute so much of that to Katie's leadership. Not only was she an amazing teacher in the classroom, but she has an incredibly positive impact on our student culture, building relationships with some of our most challenging students. That cliche of the kids that need the love the most are the ones who demonstrate it in ways that don't show that. And Katie has such a passion for those. She's going to seek out the kid that no other teacher would want in their classroom. And that impact is what makes her a well-rounded candidate for Teacher of the Year.
Ms. Aherne, just like our students set goals for to measure their success each year, so do we as adults and as teachers. Share us with some of your goals for this year.
Yeah, so my ultimate goal would be in leading a school or a school district. And in fact, if LeBron James or Pitbull are watching and tuning in,
don't call her. Don't call her. She's ours.
We'd love to have you work in the public school system instead of the private sector.
Oh yeah, come help us out.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. And that's my ultimate goal, is to never leave public education, because I think that is where we start changing and defying zip codes and neighborhoods and all of that. And then my second goal would be to a international trainer for conscious discipline as well.
So what are you most proud of at St. Lucie L?
I'm most proud of, as Dr. Harrington mentioned, the students that I work with. They are students that, you know, sometimes you're like, woo, am I going to make it through today? But I know and have already received, being on maternity leave for about 6 days, I've already received texts from my students' teachers saying how much, you know, they hope I'm doing well, and just knowing that they care about me beyond the classroom shows that they knew I cared about them and still do care about them beyond the classroom.
Because we have some of those days where we say, whew,
yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to make it.
Yeah.
What fuels you?
What fuels me is having fun with the students. So, you know, we can do all the work, give them the lessons that they need, and that's ultimately our goal and important. But those transitions or unstructured read aloud times, those are what keep me going throughout the day. If I can just get one little smile or bring back one little thing that I enjoyed of that day, then I'm able to keep going.
Dr. Harrington, is there anything else that you want to share with us about Ms. Aherne that we haven't mentioned?
She's a rock star. We were talking about her representing us as Teacher of the Year is absolutely a unanimous decision of the staff at St. Lucie Elementary, in that she represents all of what St. Lucie Elementary is about.
So the 2020 Teacher of the Year is an ambassador for education. That's the person that we have share information with other colleagues, with lawmakers, about everything that's right, everything that's good with education. As an ambassador for education at St. Lucie Elementary School, what would your message be?
My message would be that it takes the whole community, and that we want and strive to incorporate every person who is willing, whether it be churches or businesses, parents, grandparents. We want everyone involved in order to give our students the absolute best.
Martha L. Graham said, "What greater joy can a teacher feel than to witness a child's success?" And it's apparent from the conversation and the success we've had at St. Lucie Elementary that that's exactly what you're helping to happen there. Dr. Harrington, thank you for joining us. Ms. Aherne, thank you for being here as well. Give that baby a great big kiss for all of us, and congratulations on your success and your selection as Teacher of the Year.
Thank you very much.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made this vacation happen.
Double points with every purchase?
Cleverly merging promotions.
Love it.
Cross-referencing travel sites. And booking all your flights with those...
Vouchers. I got us bumped.
They were like, oh. But now they're like... Aloha. You aced this vacation. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
We're pleased to welcome to the Teacher of the Year celebration show at this time, Miss Melissa Nelson, the Teacher of the Year for Allapattah Flats K-8 School. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Dr. Perry. How are you?
All is well. Thank you for asking.
Good.
Joining her is the dynamic principal there, Ms. Anna Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Let us start by telling you, Ms. Nelson, congratulations on your selection. And I will also have to tell you that we get excited every time we have an opportunity to speak with the persons that are selected as the Teacher of the Year, because it lets us share the dynamic teachers that we have in St. Lucie County with our viewers. I can guarantee you that the entire staff at Alapata Flats tuning in tonight to see this interview and what we're going to talk about. But there are also some very dedicated viewers to our shows that are anxious to learn more about you. So if you don't mind, share a little bit about yourself with our viewers at this time.
Sure. So I'm a proud St. Lucie County graduate, public school graduate. I attended Fort Pierce Westwood High School.
Once a Panther?
Always a Panther. I went to IRSC and FAU, and I just completed about 2 years ago my master's in educational leadership.
And what's your job entail at Alapata?
I'm currently an 8th grade math teacher. I teach Algebra 1.
Cool, cool. Ms. Rodriguez, please share with our viewers also.
So, Anna Rodriguez, I graduated high school in Puerto Rico, and then I came here. I started at IRSC, where I got my associates. Then I went to Florida Atlantic University, where I received my elementary ed bachelor's, and then my master's. I taught at White City, at Mariposa. Then I was an administrator at Bayshore Elementary, Village Green, and now I am the proud principal at Alapata Flats.
Thank you, ladies. So, what's a typical day like in the math class of Melissa Nelson?
Oh, a typical day, the students come in and we get right to work. They have daily work that they're working on every day, and it's a review of questions that we've done in the past. We start some new content with a lot of modeling and demonstration, and a lot of we do. The kids are always interacting constantly. We do a lot of independent practice, whether that's on their own or on whiteboards, but we do a lot of practice every day.
So, when we think about those 8th grade middle school students, what do you say to those students to encourage them to be the best that they could possibly be?
I just encourage them every day and tell them, that I know they can do this, and I work with them every day and encourage and push them and truly work with them and show them that they can do it. They're capable of doing it.
So when we think about, again, the math class, middle school math class, how do you plan and use engagement to make sure the lesson moves forward with your students?
I'm constantly planning for things like turn and talks, giving the students opportunities to talk to each other and to interact with me. So we constantly they're talking with each other. We plan for cooperative learning as well. Sometimes we do some things that are a little bit more interactive for them, using clickers, those types of things.
So how else would you use technology to also help instruction in your room?
So we use clickers, we use some academic games through PowerPoint. Another thing that we use a lot, because it's an algebra course, is we use Algebra Nation, which is an online platform, so the students are watching videos and taking quizzes and checks on that online platform as well.
Ms. Rodriguez, from your point of view, what's the magic like when you walk into Mrs. Nelson's room?
So, when I walk into her room, everybody's working and everybody's learning. So you see this beautiful interaction of teacher and student, where students are engaged, they're taking notes, and they are quality notes, not just any note. Everything that she does is quality. Everything that she does hits the target.
Ms. Nelson, have you always known that you wanted to be an educator?
Yes, and then I kind of went off track for a little while. But yeah, when I was in 2nd grade, I decided that teaching is what I wanted to do. I had a teacher who was really cool and just had a passion for teaching, and I could see that through her. When I was graduating high school, I actually went into college and kind of took the business route and was an accounting major. And I decided this really isn't for me. And I started working at Alapata Flats as the data specialist, and I had some people there who encouraged me and said, you have a passion for this, go teach. So I did, and I haven't looked back. It was a great decision.
So when you look back, do you think that there might have been someone that inspired you to be a teacher, or someone that you draw your inspiration or model yourself after as an instructor?
Like I said, my 2nd grade teacher was instrumental in just showing me that education can be fun. The person who truly inspired me one of those is sitting right next to me. She was my 5th grade teacher, Miss Rodriguez was.
Oh, wow.
She just made learning fun
That's
as well.
a fun fact.
Yeah, fun fact. She made learning a lot of fun for us. The other person who I kind of relate myself to the most was my high school band director. She had a passion for students and pushing students and making sure they were, always trying to do their best. She was amazing at getting us to do our best.
Miller?
Yeah, Miss Miller.
Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Right, yeah, she was a dynamic teacher.
Yes, she was.
Dynamic teacher. Miss Rodriguez, we're back to you. Describe Miss Nelson for me, giving me 3 adjectives, and of course, I want you to expand on why you chose those 3.
So the first one is passionate. She's very passionate about students. The second one, and I can give you examples, actually. Let me go back to passionate. Miss Nelson doesn't just teach when she's inside the classroom. During lunch, you find her in a room somewhere in the cafeteria doing tutoring and helping students. You see her during the weekend going to see games, students who play games and need some motivation, need somebody to be their cheerleader, and there she is. Passionate, she is part of the PBIS committee. She does the athletics at our school. She's in PTO. She's in faculty council.
She's everywhere.
She's also very hardworking. Her dedication, her commitment is just flawless. So I would say passionate, committed, and incredibly hardworking.
So, what fuels you to do all of that?
I don't know. I just have a passion for students, and I think that our students are our future, and that somebody has to encourage them, and I believe there has to be somebody there to push all of those students to do their best and be that adult and role model for those students.
What advice do you offer to new teachers?
Don't give up. Keep pushing through. I know your first year is kind of hard. Definitely keep working. And it's just as much about building relationships with students as it is the content, and that's what I would tell a new teacher.
Although we know that middle school is the time where we help students develop responsibility, it is still the job of the teacher, the responsibility of the teacher, to share with parents. What advice do you offer to parents to help them ensure that the children will continue to be successful in your math class?
I like to tell parents that if their kid will just keep working and putting forth effort, that they're going to be successful. They just have to keep working hard and make sure that they're trying their best.
We like to have students set goals. It's a part of measuring math from start to finish. They're measuring their progress. But we also know that teachers establish goals for what they want to see happen in their rooms as well, what they want students to be able to attain. What are your goals for the year?
For the year, I would love to see 100% proficiency on our algebra ELC.
That's a great goal. That's a great goal.
Last year was 95.
95, so we're getting there.
It's very attainable is what you're telling me.
So,
So here's my follow-up to that. You've been at Allapattah Flats for 8 years. 8 years. 8 years. When you look at being the data specialist and then the teacher, what are you most proud of?
I think I'm most proud that I had the courage to get out of that data specialist job because it was so comfortable for me, and that I had the courage to take that leap and become a teacher. It's probably the best decision I've ever made in my life, was to get out of that office and do something different and be able to work with children.
So if I came to Allapattah Flats, walked into your math class, and watched the dynamics that's going on in the room, but they decided to lean down to her teacher and say, "Tell me about this, Mrs. Melissa Nelson," what do you think that children would tell me?
Well, I hope they would tell you that I love teaching and that I truly care for them, and I want them to do their best, and I work really hard so that they can be successful.
Ms. Rodriguez, what makes Ms. Nelson the perfect candidate for Teacher of the Year?
Well, as she told you, she was my student in 5th grade. So I always say that, and she gets
she
all
let the cat out of
embarrassed.
the bag on that one.
So proud of her. There's not a thing that she won't do for kids. And when you talk about somebody really believing in children, everything she does is about believing in children. Anything I ask of her, she will do. And she says she's a math teacher, but right now she's coaching as well. She's coaching other teachers. She's mentoring new teachers. She just finished her reading endorsement, even though she's math certified. So she does civics. She'll do anything that needs to be done for our school to be the best for children.
I'm thinking outside of the box right now and want to stretch you just a little.
Okay.
As an educator for 8 years and at Allapattah Flats, we have many concerns that are plaguing education issues that just are important to us. What is an important issue or concern that you have that's facing education and educators today?
I think one concern that I have is that all children in our state, in our nation, they deserve the right to have a public education and a quality public education. And I just think it's so important that those students are afforded that opportunity, not just students who come from wealthy backgrounds, not just students who are, high scoring on tests, but all students deserve that opportunity. And I think it's important that we fight to provide that quality education for all students.
What impact do you think you're having on your students' ability to be college and or career ready?
Well, like I said, currently I'm teaching Algebra 1, and that's, one of those classes that pushes those students to go ahead and get that graduation requirement. We do a lot of hard work, a lot of critical thinking skills in that course. So I would think that just using that course is a good push for them.
Can I add something to that?
Of course.
Something that we do at Allapattah is we take each grade in middle school to a college. By the time they end the 8th grade, they have been to IRSC, they have been to FAU, they have been to UCF. That's what we've kind of done the last few years because we want them to get excited. We want them, and Ms. Nelson is one of those people who takes them and who organizes everything with guidance. We want the students to see education and career as a future destination.
Give us a fun fact about Melissa Nelson and also share with us what are your interests outside of Allapattah?
So a fun fact is I was actually a band geek in high school, and Dr. Perry knows
Band geeks
that.
rule, yes. That's
so
our
I
world.
actually, I still play. I play clarinet in the Port St. Lucie Community Band. So it's a wonderful opportunity where we get to work with all kinds of people from around the area and play together and make music. When I'm not at Allapattah, I'm doing a lot of music things. I run the IRSC 4-County Honor Band, where we have over 500 students from the 4-county area come together and they get together and rehearse and they have a great concert. I'm a part of the Florida Music Education Association Conference Planning Committee. I help plan their music education conference every year. We actually just came back from going, where we work with over 30 performing ensembles and run the logistics for all those ensembles. So I do a lot of music things outside of Allapattah.
Let me stretch you a little bit more.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
This question is all-encompassing, so it's just not focused on education. What do you know for sure?
I know for sure that the world needs teachers who are going to work and push children to be the best they can be.
Ms. Rodriguez, is there anything that we haven't had an opportunity to speak about that you want to share about Ms. Nelson?
I see a bright future for Ms. Nelson, and I feel so fortunate to have her work, that I'm the one who hired her as a teacher. And I feel so fortunate that she is a part of my team and the Gator team. When she was a data specialist, she was School-Related Employee of the Year. When she was a first-year teacher, she was chosen by her colleagues as the outstanding first teacher of the year. So every time she rises to a higher level, and she's going to be a future administrator. There's no doubt in my mind.
So, what do you make of this accomplishment as being selected as a Teacher of the Year for Allapattah?
I think it's a wonderful opportunity, and I have to thank my colleagues for recognizing, the effort and the work that we've put in. It's truly a team effort. I wouldn't say that it's just me, but Allapattah is a wonderful family who works very well together, and I appreciate it.
When will you know that you are a success?
Well, I think we're always working and always trying to grow. I feel that I'm pretty successful right now at Allapattah, but I always feel that I can improve myself and keep doing better.
Okay, we're going to wrap it up with just a couple of more questions, all right? As a Teacher of the Year at Allapattah Flats K-8. You could possibly be the Teacher of the Year for St. Lucie Public Schools, for the state of Florida, for the nation. In that role, the superintendent, the governor, will call upon you to have conversations with our colleagues, with lawmakers. You then become the ambassador for education. What would your message be?
I think my message would be that it's important, like I said, that we push that all students are awarded these opportunities and that we work to ensure that all students get a quality education, which is what we're trying to provide at Allapattah.
Finish this phrase for me. The world needs.
For children to have caring adults in their lives.
Henry B. Adams told us that a teacher affects eternity. She can never tell where her influence stops. Thank you for influencing those wonderful little minds at Allapattah Flats. Ms. Rodriguez, thank you for bringing Ms. Nelson and sharing her with us and all
You're
of
welcome.
our awesome viewers. And congratulations on your selection as the Teacher of the Year for your school.
Thank you.
You made her college years possible, opening that education savings account when she was little, spearheading campus tours, and deciphering financial aid. If you can ace planning for college, you can do it for retirement. Get on track with tips at aceyourretirement.org.
At this time, we want to welcome to our Teacher of the Year celebration show the wonderful Miss Jennifer Wick, who's the awesome Teacher of the Year over at Southern Oaks Middle School. Welcome to our show.
Thank you.
She's brought along with her the awesome Miss Bridget Hargadine, who's a fantastic principal there. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
It is indeed a pleasure for us to have this opportunity to speak with you and share the fantastic teachers that we have here in St. Lucie Public Schools. But we know everybody at Southern Oaks will be tuning in. They already know who you are, but our visitors, our viewers want to know a little more about you as well. So if you would take a few moments and just introduce yourself to our awesome viewers.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Wick, and I teach at Southern Oaks Middle School. I have been there for 10 years. I graduated from Indian River State College. I was the first one out for their bachelor program. I started out in Wisconsin, Madison, Wisconsin. I started a totally different career, so I made a career change when we moved down here to Florida.
Cool, cool. Miss Hargadine?
Hi there, I'm Bridget Hargadine, and I've been a principal here in the school district for the last 7 years. And prior to that, I was an assistant principal over at Treasure Coast High School, and I've been in education since 1989.
So, Miss Wick, what do you teach over at Southern Oaks?
I have algebra students.
So you're a math teacher, algebra.
Yes,
What grade?
7th and 8th, mostly 8th.
Mostly, okay. Tell me this. What's a typical day like in Miss Wick's 8th grade, 7th grade math class?
Typical day would be students walk in. We usually, hang out for a couple minutes. First thing in the morning, we have a conversation. Sometimes students come into my classroom and have to decompress, whether it's something that happened, or they have to tell me some exciting news. And then they go ahead and get started on their, daily math review. And then that's usually about 10 minutes or so. And then afterwards, we jump right in. Both feet, we jump in, get started on usually some type of content of what we're working on. And then I'll do a little bit of notes. I'll take some notes. They work together in usually pairs or groups. And then I'll split up again in another set of pairs or groups. They work on some computer work or some individual practice. Or we'll mix it up and play some games.
So, what's your favorite part of teaching?
My favorite part of teaching is actually hanging out with the kids, believe it or not. I think they're great. I know it sounds very cliche. I know. Everybody says that exact same thing. I'm called crazy. I'm called everything. I mean, sure, you get challenges. You get a lot of challenges,
But we get them everywhere, don't we?
That's why I say you can walk out in the grocery store and I can meet an adult and still have challenges, So I think actually middle schoolers are wonderful. If people would just take the time to get to know them, they have a lot to do, a lot to say to you.
So, Ms. Hargadine, you get to see that magic happen, that fun happen every day in Ms. Wick's class. Tell us what it is that you see, hear, and feel when you visit.
One thing about Jennifer is she's a very driven teacher. She wants to make sure she's doing the very best for her kids. So she's always ready, always planned, always has something in mind for how she's going to approach a subject. She knows her kids so well. She will be planning ahead on how she can help certain students who might need a little extra attention, and how she might challenge those kids who are a little faster than the others as well. And she mixes up what's happening in the room. So at one point I might see individualized work, the next minute it might be pairs, the next minute it could be a gaming activity, and the kids get real excited about that.
So Ms. Wick, you mentioned the use of computers, but how do you use technology for instruction in your class? And I asked that question because we know that your students were born with technology at their fingertips.
Yes, they were. For lessons, per se, I've got access to, I use doc cams if I need to model something up on the board that helps the assistants, the students to see in the back, even though they move around my room all the time. But I'll use, my PowerPoints, which is my projection and stuff like that. But they use the laptops for online assignments. We use Algebra or Math Nation for videos to prep the course, to prep the content that we're working with. They do online assignments through the given curriculum that we have. And we'll also use other programs, such as Khan Academy for reinforcement of a concept that they may need some assistance with.
Have you always known that you wanted to be a teacher? And if not, when did you make that decision?
I have not always known I wanted to be a teacher. That was not my first thought. My first thought was actually more in business or accounting. But when I relocated down here in Florida, I thought I had the unique opportunity, well, it was unique for me, to be able to stay home with my young daughters. And I thought, when they're in school, what am I going to do? Because I couldn't imagine staying home. And then I didn't want to pick up a job going back into, someplace where I had to work while my kids were in school. So I'd have to find care for them while I was gone. So I thought, well, wait a minute, what if I was on the same, kind of the same, the schedule that they had to work on? So I thought, why don't I check into teaching? I like being around the kids. I thought, okay, let's try this. I actually thought I'd go more towards, the elementary age level. No. I'd rather stick with the middle school, that's great. So, and that's what I did. My first love for teaching was when I walked in and the kids first walk in, talk to you, and they're a little nervous, and then several days later they walk in, they're like, this is great, and you start building the relationships with them.
So what advice would you offer to a new teacher?
Oh, wow. A new teacher. Let's see, I would just tell them to take one day at a time. Everything's different in the classroom. Just because something happens one day, let's regroup and make it a little go smoother for the next day. Everything's different every day. Find a mentor teacher, come in and talk with them. Just enjoy, relax, take a deep breath and enjoy.
So Ms. Hagedine, describe Ms. Wick for me using 3 adjectives and tell me why you've chosen those 3.
Sure. Ms. Wick is driven, she's compassionate, and I'm going to cheat and use 2 words. She's a math expert. And let me tell you, when you want to talk about driven, she is going to make sure that our kids are prepared 100%, every child, every day, to master algebra. She's not going to give up on a student. She's not going to leave some students behind. She's going to make sure that everybody is going with her and that they are getting the very best out of her every day. And so, for that, I have immense respect for the work that she does in the classroom. By the same token, she is also very compassionate with our students. She has a great deal of flexibility in helping them get their homework done and helping them after school and tutoring after school, also tutoring on the weekends in our Saturday Algebra Academy. She goes out of her way to spend extra time with kids to make sure that they're all on board with what they need to do. She's also my math department chair. and she has developed a degree of expertise in math pedagogy, and she is the person that other math teachers on my campus go to when they need assistance in how to structure a lesson.
Mrs. Wick, what advice would you offer to new teachers?
I would just tell them to take a deep breath and take it day by day.
In addition to that, what advice would you offer to parents to ensure that their child would be a success?
It's advice I would offer to a parent to
Keep in mind, it's
assist them.
middle school, yes.
Right. I would just offer just confidence, help build their confidence by changing, their mindset a little bit. I know as parents, and math is a tough topic for a lot of people. You hear a lot, oh, I was never good in algebra, I was never good in math. But when we say that to our own child, that tends to make the child believe, well, if my parent wasn't very good in math, maybe I can't be good in math. And, when a student is apprehensive in math, then maybe if a parent says, well, I didn't do so well, but you can, let's sit down and try, just really changing our mindset.
Ms. Hargadine, to be in the Teacher of the Year, we know that all of them are very involved in other activities in our schools. What will we find Ms. Wick involved with that helps make Southern Oaks be the school that it is?
You're going to find Ms. Wick all over the campus. She is involved, of course, as department chair. She is involved in tutoring on campus, and she helps me plan Saturday algebra boot camps. You can find her working in a classroom with a new teacher who's come to her for advice on how to structure the curriculum. You're going to find her standing at her duty post in the hallway every day, every period, saying hello to kids, greeting them as they come into school. She's definitely everywhere and busy every moment.
So, Ms. Wick, what fuels you?
What fuels me? I would think the teachers that I work with help. Our administration, our staff, everybody, kind of has a little bit of, helps with motivation, and the students motivate me. The students motivate me to help them become better people and better math students. And
we know that math is very important, but how do you see the total experience that you provide with students, helping to prepare them to be college and or career ready?
Well, inside math, they also have to read. So I'm not just a math teacher. I read. We're a reading teacher, ELA Language Arts. My students don't just do math questions. They also have to write as well. They have to explain in words, not just mathematically or symbols. They discuss a lot of things with me, what they want, to do or what they think they want to go to college for. So I try to give them my advice on, how I would approach, my high school, because a lot of my students are 8th graders. So we all know that 8th grade starts enrolling in high school. So we start doing those attractor programs. So they always ask, what should I be taking? And then I show them, maybe the best path should be this. Or, you can always speak with your parents as well and see where they want you to be as well.
We generally start our year off with some goal setting with our students, having them plan what they want to achieve during the course of their work. But teachers also have goals for the year. What are your goals for this year?
My goals are a lot of student-based. I'd like to see my students be 100% effective on the EOC, their end-of-course exam. As a personal, more of a personal goal. I just want to be the best person, the best teacher that I could be for my students.
So tell us, when we think about what students are involved in, what you have had an opportunity to share with students, not just in your classroom, but in the outside, and the things that you have also experienced, what is it that you know for sure?
What do I know for sure? Can you elaborate on that question for me?
When we think about all that life brings us, and it's not just about the ABCs, the 1, 2, 3s, and the curriculum, but when we take everything that we have been involved in, what is it that we really know about life, about what it takes, hard work and dedication, that kind of thing?
Let's see, I know for sure that you set your mind to something and you can do it. With some encouragement, some support, I know for sure that if we have some setbacks, you just stand up, brush yourself off, and keep on going.
So we're halfway through the school year,
Yes.
into the second semester. What are you most proud of?
The success my students have accomplished so far. Algebra is a tough task, as we all know, and many will say. The first semester is way different. Learning algebra for the very first time and walking into the classroom is like learning a new language for the first time. You know, we have new symbols that they've never seen before. We have new vocabulary words that they've never heard of. So I'm very proud of my students for the hard work that they've achieved so far.
Ms. Hargadine, what makes Mrs. Wick the perfect candidate for Teacher of the Year?
Well, she brings to St. Lucie County a vision of excellence that I wish every teacher had. She is dedicated, she's hardworking, she's deeply involved in our school in every aspect, and she really is there first for our students. And you want to hire someone who says, we're going to make sure we have 100% of our kids on board learning algebra and set the highest possible standard for our students. And so I'm really proud of her for that.
Let's begin to wrap it up. Finish this phrase for me. I believe.
I believe that, it's going to sound strange, but I believe life is wonderful. I believe the world is great. I believe, hanging out with students and building relationships is, a key to a happy life.
So you're the Teacher of the Year for Southern Oaks Middle School and could possibly be the Teacher of the Year for St. Lucie Public Schools. In that role, the superintendent will call you and say, come on, Ms. Wick, we have to have a conversation with some lawmakers or with some other constituents, other educators. It could happen, it could happen.
Oh, no.
You're the ambassador for education. What would your message be?
My message would just be, to support education, and everybody think back, no matter how, young or old you are, you've had a teacher. Our first teacher in life is our parents. And then, the message would just be, think back, you had somebody in your life that has been a good influence on you. They've probably taught you something and guided you. And that's, support, just support each other.
William Ward gave us this quote when he said, the mediocre teacher tells, the good teacher explains, the superior teacher demonstrates, the great teachers inspire. Thank you for the wonderful inspiration that you're providing to our students every day at Southern Oaks. Ms. Hargadine, thank you for joining us. Ms. Wick, again, congratulations on your selection as a Teacher of the Year.
Thank you.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made this vacation happen.
Double points with every purchase?
Cleverly merging promotions.
Love it.
Cross-referencing travel sites. And booking all your flights with those...
Vouchers. I got us bumped.
They were like, oh. But now they're like... Aloha. You aced this vacation. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
As a teacher, you have chosen the most challenging and most rewarding profession there is or ever will be. Imagine the light in the eyes of a newly motivated student, the smile on a child's face when a seemingly unfathomable concept is finally grasped. Thank you for being such wonderful teachers, role models, and caring people. Every day you make a difference, and every day you do that something that truly matters. Every day you leave an undeniable mark on the future. Thank you and congratulations for being the Teacher of the Year in St. Lucie Public Schools.